All right. Jesse Crockett is here with us today. How you doing,
Good
Jesse?
man, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. How was your day? How was your week? We haven't talked in a long time. I was good friends with your brother
Yeah,
in the
man.
past and heard a lot about you, and I just want to say thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Um so we talked a little bit about your story, kind of the things that you've been through. You can just jump right into it wherever you'd like.
Sure, man. Probably around I think about the 11th grade or so, I kind of started to have my own issues with mental health, and it was undiagnosed for a while. Like I guess I just didn't think that it was too much until it got out of hand. I had a friend that had been pretty close with my family. He had been dealing with COPD for a while, and just right out of the blue, he passed away. So
Okay.
since I was so close with him,
What is
I
COPD? Sorry to cut you off, but
no problem, man.
I'm just not aware of it.
I believe it's chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's a breathing condition. It's usually caused by like high amounts of smoking.
Okay.
It affects your lungs pretty bad. It just like it's very close to like a harsh asthma in the same kind
Okay.
of sense. Like you'd have to have puffers and stuff. But after a while, it starts to weaken your heart just because it has to pump so much more blood into your body for the oxygen.
Right.
Um, but I just didn't really have the proper tools back then, as most 15-year-olds don't have. Um,
Yes, right.
so it just started to kind of play a bit of a havoc on me in a very kind of slow way. Like it was hard to find ways to cope with it. Like I was starting to retract myself from like going and hanging out with the guys and stuff. Like school was kind of fading away. It wasn't really until probably 2018 where I started to find uh, ways that would actually help me. Like uh, I started to work on cars. That's a big thing for me. Like,
Right.
but I had never, like, my family had never really been into much like mental health talk. I grew up in a bit of a bad environment as far as like father wise. He just wasn't that great of an influence. He was
Yeah.
you know, guys don't cry about stuff. They don't get upset. They just kind of shrug it off. So
Right.
I never really learned the proper skills, but like it was very amazing and eye opening. Like once I was able to get to my low point, it wasn't until then I realized, like, just simple things like, going outside and getting some fresh air, going for a walk, like basic things that most people do. I, without noticing, retracted myself from absolutely everything.
Right.
So
What were the main, like, apart from retracting yourself, what was the main I guess what were the kind of mental side effects of how you felt at that time? Like, how did you
um
so did he kind of die out of the blue?
yeah, like I had seen him, I'd say probably three days before. We were having coffee, just kind of seeing how everybody was doing, and he was great. Like I was asking him how his COPD was going. He uh he ended up saying that he hadn't felt that great in years. He said, I haven't smoked in about a month. I'm doing really good. And it was just later that night. He just passed away.
Wow.
But the things that it started to do for me, like I started to get very depressed, like just uh, like I wasn't able to really even talk to anybody anymore. Like my big problem was I didn't know how to communicate. So like
Yeah.
when that
Right.
happened, it really uh, sent me into a bit of a rut where I wasn't able to properly explain myself to the people who were trying to help. Like I wasn't able to say what actually was on my mind.
What
But
your emotions were.
yeah, exactly. Like my emotions were very flustered because I obviously was very sad about him passing away, but at the same time, like there was mass amounts of frustration and just upset because at a young age, I just wasn't able to understand anything. But for me, it really, it just put me into a very depressed kind of low mode.
Right. And that lasted for the most part until 2018. So you said 20 or when you were in grade 11.
Yeah,
What year would that be?
I believe that was the start of 2016, 2017.
So for a good 2 years, you were kind of in this place.
Oh, yeah. Um, yeah, it lasted right up until like I graduated high school. Like there was a just something to do with, I had I'd really lost all of the good work I had done in school, so there was a good chance that due to me going through all of that, I wasn't going to graduate on time.
Yeah, right.
So for me, the big thing that kind of gave me that boost to try and motivate myself that I was able to do things and get myself out of it was just graduating.
Right. Right. And then so going from there, you said you hit like a rock bottom at some point.
Yeah, right. I'd say it would have been July of 2018 that I hit my bottom, and it was once again kind of I knew that I wasn't doing anything to make it any better. So all of the things I wasn't dealing with just kind of balled up and got quite heavy. Um, but around July, I hit a point where you know I wasn't really seeing much people reaching out and like just trying to see how things were like besides my mental health, like just what I was up to. And due to me being in that state, I just began to believe that well, people didn't really care. People weren't just weren't really paying attention to what was going on. So I assumed in in my eyes and in my heart, I just felt like I was invisible. So after so long of dealing with that, I felt like it would be better if I just wasn't around.
Right.
And thankfully, I have a very compassionate mother who was able to kind of catch me a short, brief bit before I was about to do anything. But like, my thing, man, I just felt hopeless. Like, none of this would ever actually get fixed.
Right.
And I'm very, very lucky that I was able to kind of peek my head out of that.
How did that conversation go with your mother?
Um, I had spoken to a friend of mine because she was she was dealing with her own mental health issues, and I had told her that, you know, I don't really know how much longer I can deal with all of this. Like nothing's getting any better. I think I might just go away. And like
Right.
I had told her, like, I had just planned on going and laying down and taking some medication. It was nothing that I thought would get repeated to anybody else, but very thankfully, that friend of mine phoned my mom shortly after I left her house, and when I came home, she was able to catch me, and it was just it was amazing. It was just a simple conversation about what was going on. It was just, you know, where's your head at right now? Like what's making you feel like this? You're like, she was able to explain to me that even though I didn't feel like I mattered, she was able to kind of shine the light and show me, you know, I still had people that cared. And, you know, my mom has some mental health history as well. And with her going through her stuff, probably about 15 years before, she had learned the skills that she was able to explain to me, that, you know, even though I'm in such a dark area at the moment, that, you know, if I just kind of keep going through the trenches a little bit, it'll get much better. And thankfully it did.
Right. Wow. That's that's amazing, man. And that's beautiful. And I think like, you know, because I often think about that, because that's kind of like the pivotal moment, right? Where someone is in a bad place and it's so common that you feel like you're alone and you feel like no one cares and you feel like it would just be better if I wasn't here. You know, that's something that I've heard over and over, and it's just to be able to intervene um, and uh, communicate and show your love. And I think that's like a key part of spreading awareness on mental health is like, how do you make sure that you're doing that with your loved ones?
Um, for me, man, it's just as simple as sending that message in the morning. Just even if
Right.
it's just to one of the boys or something, to say, "Hey, man, like, been thinking of you. Hope all is well." Like
Right.
and especially since COVID happened, uh, I myself had a little kind of battle with my demons again, just through COVID, just being
Right.
isolated for a while. It kind of a little too much time in my mind, but
Right.
it's it's just as simple as just checking in, because a lot of things that you don't think of in that state, it happens to everybody. And how you're feeling, someone else feels. Like
Yes.
it's hard to understand that you're not alone throughout that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like we forget we're all the same thing. We forget that we're all the same species, we all the same feelings, we all the same thoughts, we all do the same thing. So it's like it's so easy to um I think isolation is the key. Like when you isolate yourself, you just start feeling like you're alone. That's the big thing, and no one gets it, and then it snowballs.
Yeah, it's very easy to get out of control.
I think that's great to just constantly be just reaching out to your loved ones. Um so you became a father at some point during this time as well, right?
uh Yeah, I had started to date a girl at the start of the 12th grade, and she had just newly had a set of twins. So when I was 18, I became, or actually when I was 17, I became a stepfather.
Wow.
They uh they just turned 4 on the 4th.
Wow. How was that experience from start to till
It's
now?
crazy. It's crazy, man. It's hard to like fathom where those 3 years went, but how they learned so much and developed. It's crazy, man. I'm still a kid myself, so like seeing me raising kids is just kind of bizarre.
Right. Yeah. Imagine. I think that's yeah, when you're younger you think adults are just adults, but then
Yeah, it's a pivotal point when you realize that nobody really grows up. You just get older.
yeah, and you just take on the responsibilities you have to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Have you learned about yourself during the time of becoming a stepfather?
Most definitely. I I picked up on a lot of wonderful things that, I didn't know I was capable of, like just actually spending time with children and, being able to solidify that bond. I'm not a very social person. I'm not that great at, making those bonds,
Right.
but that was something I didn't know that just came very natural to me. Um, and also on the flip side, I also found, like obviously with twins and just babies in general, your patience gets pushed from time to time, and you learn how to kind of tame your emotions a little bit, like ways
Yeah.
that you can deal with stuff.
Hmm. I worked at a after school program for 2 years. So yeah, the patience was you just develop patience like
Oh yeah,
unbelievable because you have to, right? Because it's like it's just constantly
it doesn't get any easier, that's for sure.
no, yeah. But but it's kind of like awesome at the same time, you know. It's like you're testing your patience, but like they're only learning, right? And you got to remember that. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, like it's interesting when you're not used to being around children. Like you really have to remind yourself, like they the things that they are doing that might be kind of testing you a little bit. Most times they don't even know that they're doing that. Like
Yeah.
they're just they're just sponges. Like how you act around them will in some way, shape, or form affect how they will act later on.
Yeah.
Like a big thing that I learned, like how I said earlier, I didn't really have the proper father figure growing up. So a
Yeah.
lot of my tendencies were just developed from him.
Yeah.
So I get to kind of reverse that a bit and change stuff about myself and show them the right way to be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like goes back to that saying like you give your kids the things you didn't get or that's what you try to do.
Exactly. That's 100% it.
You try to be the father you never had.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm very very thankful that I made that decision because it altered who I was as a person greatly over the last 4 years.
Yeah. So you're only 22 or 21?
I turned 21 in April.
Okay.
I'm just a child.
Yeah. So young, but you got all that experience as a father, as a stepfather.
It's a good thing to me to be learning all this at such a young age. It's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean all that responsibility. Have you ever thought about where you might be if you weren't, if that didn't happen?
A big thing that I thought about was I really learned a lot about how to manage my anger. Like I had,
Okay.
I wouldn't call them bad, but I did have anger issues of sorts. I just didn't know how to properly deal with my emotions. So
Right.
being around the children, you can't be acting like that around babies.
Yeah.
So it really kind of gives you an ultimatum almost, like, well, you can either choose to be the proper father that they need to be, or get out. There's no point in wasting time being a bad parental figure.
Right. So was that a process for you? Was it like just a mental mindset, like, okay, now I have to act differently, or was that like developed over time, or
Um,
how did you go about doing that?
it was developed over time. I'd say it was a big help with my girlfriend Jasmine. She's been a big support for me over the years with that. But
Right.
a big thing for me, man, I just need to communicate. When I start to get flustered and upset, my thing was usually I'd just be quiet and I'd shut down and kind of hold everything in.
Yes.
And
Right.
like she's taught me a lot about just basic communication skills, just how to let out what is on my mind without letting it out in a bad vibe.
Right. Yes, I think communication is key in relationships, and just to be able to, yeah, I mean, I think that's like the number one thing that um disrupts or I guess ends relationships is lack of communication. And
Oh, big
oftentimes,
time.
if it just could understand each, because you have this narrative of what things are, and then maybe both parties have a narrative of what things are, and you're not communicating it, and it ends up like you just get so angry or frustrated, it just becomes you know
Well,
unmanageable.
we had split up just briefly right out of high school just for that exact reason. We were just we were young kids that both of us didn't really have good communication skills. So that time apart really like helped us learn communication skills so that it wouldn't happen again.
Right. um so moving on to like your rock bottom, where does it kind of go from there?
Um, Whenever I hit rock bottom, it took me, I'd say, probably a good 3 or 4 months just to kind of not feel any better. I felt better, every day once I had the realization that how I felt wasn't just for me and people could help me. But it took me a long time just to kind of get back to what used to be how I felt, like just kind of a good normal. Like I had to
Base.
change a lot. I had to change, you know, my sleep habits, what I ate. I had to start going for walks, which was a big one for me. Just the fresh air helps immensely.
Right.
Um, and
Yeah, that
really,
was.
working out was the biggest one.
Oh, really?
I I've always been a skinny guy all through school, so whenever I was out of school and kind of trying to pick my feet back up, I started working out a little bit and just being able to let out that frustration in a healthy way instead of, you know, flying off the handle at somebody. I could just go lift some weights, and when I would come up from the basement, I almost would feel like I was like rejuvenated almost.
Right.
It just kind of would give me that kind of kick in the ass to go do stuff and actually keep my head up.
Right. So, like, was it healthy eating that was helpful?
Oh
Like,
yeah. Um, I really didn't eat enough vegetables, like your typical stuff. Like
Right.
my stepdad has gout, so we don't eat red meat very much.
Right.
So like I'd have low iron. I just wouldn't have, my proper amount of vitamins in me. So like I really had to start eating like red meat, chicken, like stuff with lots of good value. Like greens was a big thing. Like I just really wasn't treating my body properly. I just didn't understand, the food you put into your body has a big effect on how you feel.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's yeah. And the walks were big too.
Um, I never really was into walking. Like we moved to town when I was about 10, so I just walked everywhere. So when I'd come home, I never really felt like going out and walking. So
Right.
after a while, and like after we moved a bit and moved further away, I just really lost the interest in it. But just to get the motivation to go out and like just even walk around the corner through a subdivision or something, that extra 15-20 minutes of fresh air is quite crucial.
Right. Something that I've talked a lot about here, but that was something that was huge for me was walks. And I still do it to this day. And it's almost like a mindfulness practice where, at least for me, where you walk and everything that's on your mind slowly starts. It's like a time where you start to work through the things in your mind, but also, you know, sometimes eventually you just end up focusing on what's in front of you and becoming more present.
Yeah. Like I find my best thinking is always when I go just for a walk through the woods. Just to
Yeah.
like even though it's winter now and not too much green around, it's nice to just navigate through nature and just kind of be able to talk to yourself and just kind of like work through problems that you may not be able to, you know, get the time to think about or work through with the rest of your day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think it's getting away from distractions.
Yeah, you're able to disconnect yourself from everything for a bit.
Right. No, that's been huge for me too, man. Um, so you started to kind of adopt all these new habits and lifestyle changes, and you start to see improvements as those changes come into play.
Yes, like as I started to eat, like I just realized, I had more energy, which obviously more energy, I have a little more motivation. Like even if it was just something like, oh, I'll make my bed today. Then like the next day I'd wake up and be like, oh, I slept pretty good. I should keep doing that. And I'd be like, oh, I ate breakfast. Don't usually do that. I said, I'm starting to feel pretty good from this too. Like it, it just all started to really open my eyes, like just basic things I wasn't doing.
Right.
Um, a big thing though, I genuinely just started to feel a little happier every time I woke up. Just like eating
Wow.
eating less junk and just being able to get the energy to motivate myself just to do the small stuff. Because for me, I find it's there's no point in shooting real big, like for something in your day. Work on the small stuff. Because
Yes.
like for me, I write down a list when I can, just about small things I would like to achieve in the day. And like one of them is just make your bed, brush your teeth. Because at the end of the day, when I look at that and I see that it's all checked off, I feel amazing that I was able to do everything I wanted to do today.
Right. No, that's huge, man. And that's like something that I work on with my clients and with exercise and habits. It's all about small incremental changes over time. Um, and then that builds up momentum, right? And I think you're so right with like you have to do the small things first before you can like oftentimes we try to like jump into the deep end of the pool, but we haven't even learned how to swim. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like and I learned that from experience. I thought, like a thing for me, I'd start to feel good after a bit, and I just go, oh well, I just won't do this, and then I'll just go and try and do this today. Like I just realized I was starting to overwhelm myself with too many things at once. I had to realize, it's okay if I don't get, big things done today. Just it's something I can work my way up to, and kind of like you said with jumping in the deep end, you got to get your toes warm first before you jump in.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's crazy how it applies to everything in life, you know. Um and I think just patience is big. Patience is key. Like having patience for yourself, even to be able to employ like all those habits and wait for yourself to feel better. I think oftentimes with like, you know, maybe with society now where everything is instant, we forget that like things do take time with our health. And you do have to develop some patience um with something you want to do.
Most definitely. And with the patience, it's something that uh, I feel like I lost a lot of my patience just throughout trying to deal with all of that, because I'd have so much stuff snowballed that, like little things would start to bug me. Like if somebody was taking too long in front of me at a red light or something, like I was starting to almost just not really put much effort into my patience.
Yeah.
And I really didn't understand that, at least for me, a lot of my most, amazing things that have happened, it's all had to do with, just taking it cool and trying to actually do something slow and take my time. Like I feel like the best things you can possibly do for yourself will never be, right off the bat
Overnight.
instant. Yeah, that's you have to work for it to really feel it pay off.
Yes. Yeah. It can't be an overnight success.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not just gonna win the lottery. You gotta. Yeah. So where does it go from there?
Um, from there, man, it all uphill, man. Like it was just things started to, like I wouldn't say I'm normal by any means. I'm almost back to how I was before all of that stuff happened, but it really just, it took me a lot of realizing, I have to, it's repetitive. It's not really, you know, the things you're doing to make yourself better aren't going to keep changing. Like you have to keep doing those, like
Consistently.
yeah, those consistent tasks, like just menial ones, like giving your hair a quick brush, slapping some toothpaste on your teeth, like little small things like that. Like where if you're in a rush, you might think, oh well, it's okay, I'll get to it later.
Yeah.
Most times, man, you just don't have the energy to get to it later.
Yeah.
Some things just weren't going to happen unless I realized, a lot of the stuff I'm going to have to do to keep my head above water is the same stuff. It's not, I'm going to go and become the prime minister or nothing. I'm just I'm going to put a
Maybe
load of
someday.
laundry in, like maybe get a coffee on the way to work, like just little things for myself. I really started to. I found I was trying to take the weight of everybody's problems on top of my
Yeah.
own, which
Yeah.
I feel is a rather common thing to happen. But for me, I just had to start really making time for myself and just
Yeah.
trying to do things for me. Like if I wanted to just go for a cruise and take some scenic pictures or something, like
Yeah.
a lot of just small but hard work, man. Like and like how you brought up Joel, like Joel's been a extremely crucial part. Like just like for instance, like we work together. So like just being able to have somebody who has been through the same stuff I have, and thankfully alongside me through the whole thing,
Yeah.
it's it's a wonderful help because I I don't think anybody on the planet quite would know somebody as well as their brother, and I'm very thankful that I have that good relationship because just little things he did was big. Like just kind of, hey man, like it's Friday, what you doing tonight? You might as well come over for the weekend or something. Like, would you like to come? Like,
Right.
would you like to come take Elvis for a walk? Because he knows that I love his dog, so I'll go hang out with the dog, and it's like, oh, we're gonna go for a walk before work. Like it's things where I doubt he would realize that he does anymore, but like just kind of giving me that bit of a trick to get me into town and do something, and then okay, well we're gonna go do something healthy now. Like we got to be taking care of ourselves. He's been
Right.
a very crucial piece to the puzzle.
Right. That's awesome, man. And it goes back to like your support system, right? How crucial it is to have a support system and close loved ones that are supporting you and helping you in a positive way.
And a big thing I think a lot of people don't realize, uh, my circle's small. You're like it never really matters about the quantity of friends that you have. You could have two friends, but they could be like, you know, solid as concrete. They could be
Yeah.
your best buds, and that's worth more than having, you know, 20 crappy ones. Like
Yes.
I
100%.
I really had to realize that I don't need a big circle of fellas to like hang out with or even just to have in my life. It just meant, I had to start being a little more careful on, you know, who comes into the circle and bring myself around like healthy, positive people.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's super important. It's all just about the quality, the people you love, like the quality connections. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of connections that you have.
Exactly.
Um, one of the guests on here, and I reference this a lot, was Joe Puya. He was kind of a coach, mentor to me, and really smart guy. And he was talking about the importance of building bridges to others, and bridges being a metaphor for connections. He's saying like the more solid bridges you have to other people, the more quality connections you have, the happier you will become. So that means like, you know, with the people that's close to you, it's like, it's a stone bridge. and
Yeah.
the more of those you have, the happier you are, and the more solid you feel mentally. Um, but it was also like it was the first thing I realized, like when I went through what I went through, was like the only thing that really matters is the people you love, like those three or four people or five. You're lucky if you have one. Some people
Yeah.
don't have one, but it's like your family and your friends that are like family. And you know like if one of those people die, or if one of them die, like nothing else really matters. Like we concern ourselves with all this other stuff, like jobs and money and society and stuff, but like if one of those people die, like it's just all noise.
Well, and I'm happy you brought that up. It's a nice segue for me with my friend's passing last month. It was exactly like that. Like I had been friends with this guy since we were 10 years old. Like we were just goofy kids together, skipping class, getting in trouble, like
Right.
just menial, like goofy kid stuff. But I'd gotten a message from him in the summer saying that he had been diagnosed with cancer, and I'd went to see him, and I was like, "Man, how you doing?" He said, "Oh, good. Like the doctors, say that I'm going to beat it. Like it seems pretty good." He said they said I wasn't going to make the summer, but he said it's September. I feel fine. Like I'm doing good. Um, it really another thing how you were asking, my healthy habits. I learned a lot just over the last month with him passing, because I realized a lot of the stuff I worry myself about and like add unneeded stress. It's pointless. Like there's a lot of stuff that just really doesn't matter. Like I crashed my car around Christmas too. I couldn't care if I ever fixed it. Like
Right.
I just catch stroke drives if I'm lucky, and if not, I walk. Like it's even just like say if I ripped a jacket or something, it's like, oh, it's just a jacket, man. Like who cares?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I learned a lot about the quality of life and just really finding out what matters the most to me, especially through
Right.
spending the last month with him at palliative care. Like I had made a little car run for him, and he asked me, "Why are you doing this, man?" I said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Would you do it for me if I was sick?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then just drop it, man." I said, "That's it." I said, "You would do the exact same for me. We've been friends for a long time." I said, "Well, if you last, say a year, or if you pass away tomorrow," I said, "I would like you to be happy with what you got." I said, like the car meet got completely out of hand. Like I thought there would be maybe 100 cars, 200 if we were lucky. We had 454 cars drive by palliative care, all for him. Like we pulled him out in his bed so he could be right at the road and see it. And
Wow. That's beautiful, man.
something that really shook to the core was he started to cry, and I was like, "Dude, well, like, what are you crying for? Like, this is awesome. What's like, are you all right?" And he said, "It's just so cool." He said, "This is all for me." I said, "Well, yeah, man. Like, you're the star of the show, man. You're on the Guardian front page." And like he just kind of chuckled, and the whole month he passed away. I believe it was October 24th, and the run was on the 3rd. And the whole month, it was all he would talk about. Just, "Oh man, you remember that car that went through?" And it was just as the idea came because we were talking about cars. That was our big bond from childhood. And he said, "Oh man, like what's your dream car?" I said, "Well, buddy," I said, "my dream car is out in the parking lot. It's my Integra." I said, I was like, "What about you?" And you could tell when I asked him that, it kind of hit a soft spot with him, and he just went, "Ah, no, it's okay, man." I said, "No, what's wrong, man? Why don't you want to talk about it?" And he said, "Well, it's not like I'm going to get to drive it or anything." And I went home and I went out and had a puff, and the whole time I was just thinking, like, man, that's not fair for him to be thinking like that. Like, I'd like to do something to pick him up. I was like, well, his favorite car is a Nova. I said, I'm sure I could get a Nova to drive by. And I put an ad up on a group that Chris Inman put up. And thanks to him and my buddy Austin, it just took right off. Like,
Wow.
it was the most beautiful thing I think I will experience.
That's amazing, man.
Like, just to be able to change his quality of life. Like, I could tell that he was starting to get kind of lost in his own mind himself. Like, there's not too much happiness going on for the guy. So
Right.
I just didn't want him to not enjoy his final month. If anybody could ask for anything with their final time, it's just that they can enjoy it and have fun. Like, even just goofy things. Like, I did burnouts every night that I left for the whole month. Like, right in front of the door, leaving the exit. And I'd always come back and be like, "Oh, I hope I didn't upset any of you guys." And be like, "Oh no, it's okay. Like, you made Will laugh. That's all that matters." Like, being in there and, like, where we were on two sides of the fence, not that I ever took my health for granted, but it's not really something you think about. Like,
No,
you feel good, you wake up, you go to work or whatever.
you assume you just assume that it'll always be like that because you never had something happen that would tell you different.
Exactly. And that really was a big pivotal point in my life. Just to be able to realize, man, like, I have people tell me that I should have a journal just for, things I'm thoughtful about. And I'm happy that this happened today. I'm just happy, man, when I wake up and plant my feet. It's something that I took for granted for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful that even under the circumstances, I've started to realize, even if I'm not having the best day and, things are getting pretty heavy, at
Yeah.
least I'm able to, wake up and confront today and actually able to go through with it.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome, man. It seems like a good time to end it. Is there anything you'd like to add or
Not
anything else
really,
maybe
man.
you I just want to
Um,
say thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, man. I'm just happy to share my side of the story.
I think it will help people and yeah, man, I just think that yeah, it's just awesome you to share, man. I'm going to send you a box of salts from our sponsor, the Prince Edward Island Sea Salt Company.
Sure.
So 40% of all proceeds go to mental health programming on PEI. So everybody go check out the Prince Edward Island Sea Salt Company. And I just want to say thanks so much, Jesse. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Woo! Have a good one, buddy.
All right.